Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of today, the 26th of July. This year's flown past. And thank you, members of the public who are in the gallery this evening. Lovely to see you. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public. During this meeting, any members of the public who are addressing Council will have their images and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record council meetings unless approval has been granted by the chair. The chair is me tonight. Please ensure that mobile phones and electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode during the meeting. And of course, feel free, if you do get that call from home, just slip out. There's no problem with that. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person, and the meeting will be open to the public via live streaming. Members of the public are invited to view the live stream council meeting by following the link on the council's website or Facebook page. If council encounters technical difficulties with the live streaming during the meeting, I'll first turn to Ben in there and then we'll adjourn until the issue is resolved. If the technical issue can't be resolved during the meeting, it may be postponed at a later time or date. So East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai Kurnai, Monero and Bidawal people as the traditional custodians of this land that encompasses East Gippsland Shire and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional custodians have cared and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and the right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders past, present and future. So a member's attendance can only be recorded as present at a council meeting when the member can confirm they meet all of these criteria. They can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. So now I'll confirm with each of Councillor Van Diggle and Councillor Buckley that they can see, hear and be heard by each other and us, and note assurance from each that the location they're participating from is secure and to ensure confidential deliberations remain confidential. Councillor Van Diggle, good evening. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Terrific, thank you. Can you confirm the location you're participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Buckley, good evening. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Terrific. Can you confirm the location, even though it's very frosty up there by the looks of it, you're participating in from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that procedural work, councillors. We note the apology of Councillor John White tonight and wish him a speedy recovery. He sounded pretty terrible yesterday. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest?
Yes, Mayor. I have a conflict of interest for items 7.2 and 7.3.
Thank you.
It's a material conflict and I will leave when that matters.
Great, thanks. CEO, Mr Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a general conflict of interest for items 7.2 and 7.3, which I will stay in the meeting, though.
Thank you, that's been noted. Councillors, we'll just confirm the minutes held on Tuesday the 28th of June can be confirmed. Councillors, do I have something? Councillor Stowe, Councillor Allen, Councillor Stowe, do you need to speak to that? Councillor Allen, they're true and accurate record. Does anybody wish to speak against that? Are there any amendments, councillors? None noted. I'll just put that to the vote to make sure. Councillors, all those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. The next meeting is Tuesday the 16th of August to be held right here, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, 6 p.m, and August is romping towards us at a great rate. Are there any requests for leave of absence? None noted, councillors. CEO, we're into open forum and we do have a couple of petitions.
We do. We also have a speaker to item 7.
Very good, thank you.
7.1.1.
We do.
The proposed plan to cut hours of operation to Paynesville Library. Julia Dietrich.
Julia Dietrich, thank you. Terrific. Okay.
We can speak to the matter now.
Julia, would you like to step up to the microphone? Thank you. Lovely to see you. Thank you. We'll just make sure it's turned on and Alba will just help you. Miss Elling, thank you. Thanks, and please relax. It's a very intimidating space, but please don't feel that. Feel
Can
comfortable that
everybody
we're
hear
here.
me?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. I've got 6 points and I will be reading them. My speech goes for 5 minutes and 30 seconds, so it is a little bit over.
I think we can cope with that.
Good. I stand before you to tell you what I and many others in this Shire believe are your most valuable assets concerning the libraries in the East Gippsland Shire. They are safe, welcoming, democratic places where everybody belongs, but it is not only the books and technology, but the people who work there with their experience, who represent and positively advocate for the Shire. They revel in collaboration, in problem solving, in fostering community spirit. We trust them. They are uniquely placed to respond to community need at a grassroots level. Why would the Shire want to contract the hours of staff who are your best marketing asset and reliable source of information? At a time when prices are going through the roof and there is such uncertainty about the future, we need your backing, not your censure. COVID has meant lockdowns, shutdowns and curfews, and has delivered to us isolation and a fear of social engagement. We have lost so much. You want, in this review, to support strong mental health, well-being and resilience. Studies have identified the major and important role libraries play in rural and remote communities now, and will in the future, as they have the facilities and ability to keep communities connected. They have evolved to become a hub for digital education and information, extending far beyond the traditional paperback. Wouldn't an expansion of services, rather than a contraction, help restore hope and confidence in our community? We know technology is changing at such a fast rate, and a lot of us need help in using and managing it. Over 30% of Lakes and Paynesville identify as over 65 and want the traditional services libraries have always provided, but also the choice to participate in programs and events, study, read, relax, and connect with friends there. But they have to be open. Social isolation is only enhanced if the lights are on and staff are there to support the library's function. The truth of the matter is that not everyone has access to the technology needed to consume digital media or the money to access it at home. Coverage here in the country is patchy or non-existent for some. Calls drop out, the internet goes offline without warning. As an example, Timball has assisted over 1,200 people through his office to access the electricity supplement. 1,200 people. Only Bairnsdale Library would be getting that better everyday customer experience for visitors and residents by an early start on weekdays. Bairnsdale looks increasingly like the favoured child as it already opens Saturday morning. We would gladly cut our hours from 8:30 to 9 a.m. if our library had the same weekend openings. Has the Shire considered in describing these cuts as a small shift in resources when 4 of the 6 libraries will lose significant hours, the effect it will have on library users? 48.5 hours is not small. Saturday morning is an important time for people who work during the week. It is a time that they can visit with their family, both to use the library as well as the information and facilities that it and the staff offer. This is the way to improve mental health and contact with the Shire. It is as important as sporting facilities, which service the young and the fit. I've read your document many times. The review mentioned comparing East Gippsland Library and Service Centre with others. Did you compare it to Inverloch? On a recent visit there, with a population of 5,437, a seaside town with an older population, very similar to Lakes Entrance, I found their library was open 6 days a week, including Saturday. And I'm always left asking why there was no recommendation G. After all this time and money has been spent, 6 recommendations were put forward, only one for each centre affected, with no options and no alternatives. This is not community engagement or consultation, but a fait accompli. That is why many people feel disempowered and angry. In conclusion, I commend the Shire on your increased presence on social media, but I ask you to reflect on those especially who don't have access to it or choose a more personal and engaging way to communicate with the Shire. People matter. Libraries matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Good points well made. Thank you. CEO, do we... Peter.
Yep, thank you, Mayor, and through you. So we have 3 petitions.
Thanks for that. Yep.
One of which you've heard from Ms Dietrich. First one at 7.1.1 is titled Proposed Plan to Cut the Hours of Operation to Paynesville Library. This report informs Council of a petition submitted by Ms Fiona Seaton from Paynesville seeking Council to reconsider the proposed cutback of library hours in Paynesville as part of Council's Library and Service Centre review. The petition is from 236 petitioners, which states, we ask that East Gippsland Shire Council to reconsider their proposal plan to cut the hours of opening to Paynesville Library by 18.5 hours per week. So the petition has been received, Mayor, and presented in accordance with our Governance Rule 7.7. There are 4 recommendations before you, Mayor, and they are to receive and note the report, receive the petition submitted by Ms Fiona Seaton, noting that the petition has been referred to the Manager Customer Experience and Communications for inclusion in the submissions to the Library and Service Centre review, which will be for consideration at some point by Council, and notes that Council officers have written to the head petitioner.
Great, thanks. Just a point of clarification. So there's 3 petitions that have been presented. We're dealing with each one individually?
Separately.
Yep, great, thank you. Questions of Mr Cannizzaro. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. Mr Cannizzaro, I just have a question in regards to when petitions are lodged. It's just come to my attention that there was 800 signatures on this particular petition, yet because some of those petitioners didn't put down their postcode, there was only 236 accepted. So that's about a cull rate of about 60%. Is that correct? And is that just a procedural requirement that a postcode must be put down when a petition's signed?
Yeah,
Thanks, Councillor Buckley.
Buckley, and through you, Mayor, yes, that is a procedural matter, and we look for, if you like, correctness within the petition itself in terms of the detail.
Yep. Okay. Thanks for that question. Good. Thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if our council provides any guidance to petitioners in that regard, so we're able to, people are able to submit petitions that are in whole valid.
Yep, valid.
Yes, that is on our website, Councillor Crook. Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? In which case there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Allen. Second to Councillor Crook. Want to speak to the motion?
No, just to say that we receive it, and it took a lot of effort to get it, and thank you for going to, excuse me, thank you for going to that trouble to feed back into this process.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Crook. Is the motion opposed? Anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Buckley, go ahead.
Look, I just think it was very elegantly put, the Speaker, in regards to this petition. I think that it hits home just how important our library services are and how engaged our community are in making sure that their point of view is put forward very succinctly, and we're hearing it loud and clear. So thank you for the lady Speaker.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Julie
that.
Dietrich, thank you. Councillors, in which case, no other speakers, I'll put the motion to the vote that we receive this. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Carried unanimously. 1.7.1.2 is the Omeo Library Service Centre review, and that's another petition.
Yep,
Mr Cannizzaro, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So the report before you informs Council of a petition submitted by Ms Pauline Connolly, asking Council to adequately resource the Bendigo Bank and Vic Road services at the Omeo Service Centre as part of its Library and Service Centre review.
Great.
The petition is from 33 petitioners, which states, we, the undersigned, request the Bendigo Bank Agency and Vic Road services to be adequately resourced and remain at the Omeo Service Centre. The petition has been received, Mayor, and is presented in accordance with the Governance Rule at 7.7 with officers' recommendations. You'll see in your report, councillors, firstly, for Council to receive and note the report and receive the petition submitted by Ms Pauline Connolly requesting that the Bendigo Bank and Vic Road services be adequately resourced and remain at the Omeo Service Centre, and also noting that the petition has been referred to the Manager Customer Experience and Communications for inclusion in the submissions for the Library and Service Centre review, and also notes that council officers have written to the head petitioner. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr Cannizzaro. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Uri. Then you, Councillor Buckley.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a brief question to Mr Cannizzaro. Do we offer any indication to the submitters of the petitions about how long they might wait for this item to come before council again?
We haven't articulated that in detail, Councillor Uri, but certainly we've got several hundred submissions that we're working through that will be presented to council shortly.
Thanks, Councillor Uri. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr Cannizzaro. Also, I just would like to ask the question. It states here only 33 signatures. Most of the signatures that I saw on the petition were from the Benambra area, but there were quite a lot more than that. Can you tell me what the amount were that didn't have postcodes on them, so the amount in total?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Buckley. I don't have that specific information to hand right now, but certainly I can take that on notice.
Thank you very much. And just another question in regards to the process. Actually, it's probably out of the scope of this petition. I have one further question though. When a procedure takes place in regards to having a service looked at, which these petitions are pertaining to, is that done via the councillor group's request, or is it done by an officer recommendation?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Buckley. Certainly the question's not related to this item, but the question is we have an obligation through the Local Government Act to conduct service reviews across many of our services, some of which have already commenced, and you will note, Councillor Buckley, that we'll be presenting a report to Council at some stage in the near future to articulate what the next set of service reviews may be proposed for your consideration.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the officers present what they believe that services should be looked at. That's how the procedure works.
There are certain, thank you, Councillor Buckley, through you, Mayor. There are certainly business requirements to review services, and we do that quite frequently, as you will know, through some of the things that are before councillors and council. So we do that on a regular basis. You will know that this service centre review and library review has been somewhat 15 years in the making. I think that was the last time it was reviewed. Councillor Buckley, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Cannizzaro.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Any further questions, councillors? Councillors, in which case there is a recommendation. Is there a motion? Thanks, Councillor Crook. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Uri. Oh, pardon me, Councillor Buckley, you can jump in there. Good on you. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, look, I just want to thank the community of Benamba and some at Omeo. I just wanted to also say that I don't think it was circulated long enough. That was the feedback that I had, and I've had a lot of feedback in regards to this petition. I fully support community engagement upon it, and there was just one message in regards to the services, and that is that I think I'll probably leave it at that, because we'll get to speak on this a little bit further down the track.
Thank you, councillors. Is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Carried unanimously, CEO. Items 1.7.1.3, Lakes Entrance and Paynesville Library and Service Centre review. Another petition, Mr Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The report before you is the Lakes Entrance Paynesville Library and Service Centre service review. The report informs Council of a petition submitted by Ms Julia Dietrich on behalf of the members of the Friends of Library, Lakes Entrance and Paynesville, asking Council to continue the current operating hours at the Lakes Entrance and Paynesville Service Centre as part of Council's Library and Service Centre review. The petition from 999 petitioners states, we, the undersigned, hereby petition that East Gippsland Shire Council perform due diligence in the Service Centre and Library review. We ask that 1. Lakes Entrance and Paynesville Service Centre and Libraries to continue to operate from 8:30am to 5pm on Mondays through to Friday, and we request the current proposed Service Centre and Library review recommendations to be void. The petition has been received and presented in accordance with our Governance Rule 7.7. And again, before you, councillors, is the recommendations around noting and receiving the report and receiving the petition submitted by Ms Julia Dietrich, requesting Council continue the current operating hours at Lakes Entrance and Paynesville Service Centres, and noting that the petition has been referred to the Manager Customer Experience and Communications for inclusion in the submissions for the Service Centre and Library service reviews, and notes the Council officers have written to the head petitioner. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr Cannizzaro, thank you. Questions, councillors? Thank you. There is a recommendation, councillors. Do I have a motion? Councillor Crook, seconded Councillor Allen. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Certainly, just briefly to say thank you to those people involved in bringing the petition to us. It's an important mechanism for your voices to be heard, and I encourage you to keep doing so.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Nothing to add, thanks, Mayor.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. Thanks, councillors. All those in favour? Thanks. The motion's carried unanimously. We'll receive that petition. Thank you. CEO. Questions of council? I believe we have a few. Item 1.7.2, councillors.
We do, thank you, Mayor. And the first speaker is Ms Denise Knight. And if we could ask Denise to come up to the stand, if she's here. Yep.
Hello, Denise. Welcome.
My two questions commence with, could Council please provide information update on what action, if any, is being taken to remedy issues resulting from the volume of combungy reed in the Toonlook Waters lagoon/drain? What options are being researched and what is the time frame to deal with this increasing problem? Could Council please provide information how the developer's contribution of $500,000 towards the management of the Toonlook Waters lagoon has been dispersed, if indeed it has been? I'm very happy to take questions, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Denise. Terrific. I'll refer this to Ms Weigel over here.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, Mayor, Council has also received these queries from Ms Knight in writing and responded in detail to Ms Knight quite recently. I understand that Ms Knight was also one of the residents from Toonlook Waters who also participated in a meeting with residents on the 1st of June, at which time officers addressed this query in detail and advised that there was also a need to undertake additional research around the developer contribution referred to. This query about the developer contribution was also responded to in our recent correspondence to Ms Knight, and therefore I don't believe it needs elaborating in detail at this time. A range of options for combungy management in the water body will be presented back to the local residents, along with management options very shortly.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I've received neither of those two pieces of correspondence. Neither.
Okay, well, we'll make sure you do get those and find out where they've gone if they
We will
haven't.
need to point that up because certainly they were, the letter I have is dated the 14th of July.
Okay.
We'll follow that
All
up.
right. Well, we will follow that up, and if there's stuck in the mail somewhere or there's some issue around that, we'll rectify that and get those to you.
Thank you very
Good.
much.
Thanks for your question. Thank you for being here tonight. CEO, another question.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Miss Casey Booth. Is Ms Booth here? Yep.
G'day, Casey.
Hey guys, how you going? Again, thank you so much for taking my time, for me taking your time.
We get it, that's fine. It's fine. It's time.
First of all, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Nola Brady for her response to our question at last month's council meeting. As a community, we respect the comment that the Paynesville Service Centre has geographic proximity to an alternate primary library facility in Bairnsdale within 15 minutes for those who are able, which is not possible for other council community services centre sites, hence the reason to consider quite significant decrease of hours in Paynesville. Although we respect it, we do disagree that it's an alternate facility for our community, and that this is why. Well, Julia covered it quite a lot just before, but which I have to commend her speech as well. It was really, really...
So, Casey, your question.
Okay, so my question is, following that information, if it were to be decreased 18.5 hours, asking the council, do they plan to support the wiser demographic and growing population of Paynesville and their requirements to have a service like the library available to them when they need it? And will they be offering extra public transport or another space for this community to meet on the days and hours that the library will be closed? Forward to council's response.
Mr Cannizzaro. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question. Councillors, you will know that no determinations have been made regarding any of the recommendations of the Service Centre and Library Review. Community consultation was undertaken between the 23rd of May 2022 through the 30th of June 2022. And we've had, as I mentioned earlier, significant feedback through various submissions and form. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be presenting those submissions to councillors in August, so about 3 or 4 weeks from today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Cannizzaro. Just to reiterate, there's no determination made and we haven't even seen a report on this matter yet. So, Mr CEO, another question.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms Leanne Dyson.
Hello, Leanne. Good evening.
Hello.
Welcome.
Mayor, councillors, my name's Leanne Dyson and I'm a fourth generation East Gippsland resident. Thank you for this opportunity to ask these questions. It is my understanding that the Mallacoota Streetscape project was not included in the 2020-2021 budget, and therefore it appears that it was not funded at the time the contract was granted. How did this meet the Council's procurement and probity guidelines? And do you want my second question?
Sure, yes please.
Okay, and my second question is, who is the Council's external probity auditor and how is that appointment made?
Thank you. We'll refer that to Ms Weigel.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council often receives funding during the year for projects and as such adjusts its budget once funding has been confirmed through contractual agreements with the funding body. And this was the case for the Mallacoota project as well. Prior to the delivery funding, which was granted to Council commenced a process of designing the Mallacoota Streetscape project with the community. And this is not an unusual process for Council, and it's important to ensure that the project can be delivered within the project timeframes outlined by the funding body. So just to clarify that the delivery of a works package for the Mallacoota Streetscape, which is where the majority of the money will be spent, has yet to be tendered. To date, Council has engaged both an external project manager and an external design company through separate contracts to guide the significant project through its design phase only and to a point where it will be able to be tendered for delivery. The contracts to date have both been awarded in accordance with Council's procurement policy. And in accordance with section 5.2 of the procurement policy, Council engages an independent probity auditor service where required. I don't believe at this time it's necessary or appropriate to name our probity auditor. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Leanne. There's a fourth question, CEO.
There is. Thank you, Mayor. Ms Jeanette Wagner. No, Jeanette's here.
Good evening, Jeanette. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr Mayor.
You can bend that down if you want, that microphone. It's pretty flexible.
Thank you.
Great.
And councillors, thank you very much for allowing me to put this question to you. My question was, when and how was the $2 million Mallacoota Streetscape project advertised?
So if you would like to
question
answer both, if you would like to ask both your questions.
Okay.
Sure.
Question 2 is, in Council's procurement policy at the time, there was a requirement for projects of $2 million or more to be referred to an external probity auditor prior to a project being awarded. Did this occur, and if so, when did that happen?
Great. Thanks. We'll refer that to the General Manager, Fiona Weigel. Thanks.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. As I've already explained, the delivery of a works package for the Mallacoota Streetscape has yet to be tendered. To date, Council has engaged both an external project manager and an external design company through separate contracts to guide this project through its design phase to a point where it can be tendered for delivery. The contracts to date have been awarded in accordance with Council's procurement policy using a publicly advertised panel of contractors. But again, this is not for the majority of the works, this is just for the design components. As we've explained, the major component of this project, being the delivery of the physical works, has yet to be delivered or tendered. The external contractors working on this project have only been engaged in accordance with for the design work and have been engaged in accordance with Council's procurement policy. I believe that that answers both those questions. So
sorry, I didn't guess. So when and how was the $2 million Malakuta streetscape project advertised?
it hasn't been because it hasn't been tendered yet.
Oh, I see.
So we're still going through the design phase.
Okay.
Once we finish the design phase, then we'll tender the delivery, which is the big project.
Okay. Do you know when that will be at this stage?
Look, I can't give you a date right now.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Those tenders normally go out in the local paper, for example, and on the Shire's website, Jeanette.
They're advertised through tender link,
Yep.
so we've got a very clear process in our procurement policy and on our website about how we tender those projects.
Okay.
Good, thanks for the
Thank you
questions.
very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Last question, I believe, CEO.
Yes, it is. Ms Kerry Knights, there is a question that she has for us.
Hello, Kerry, welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
It is. Thanks for being here and thanks for the opportunity to ask.
You're welcome.
Question. Again, on the Malakuta Streetscape project.
Good.
I understand the $2 million Malakuta Streetscape project was awarded to an external firm in December 2020. The Council's procurement policy at the time required any contract with a value over $500,000 to be put to Council for approval. My question is, where is the record of this project being approved?
So, again, General Manager, this contract hasn't been awarded yet.
That's
That
right.
process hasn't started.
Really,
So,
the understanding is not correct. Council is yet to engage contractors to undertake the physical works, and this is where the works will be over $500,000. And when we're ready to do so, this work will be sought through a public tender. To date, Council has only awarded 2 very small contracts for the development of detailed design for this project and the project management of the design component of the project. These contracts have been awarded in accordance with Council's procurement policy. Thank you.
Can I ask another question just to clarify?
okay, this one occasion, all right.
Those contracts that were awarded for the design phase, where would records for that be in the where is the record of that being approved available?
Those contracts were awarded in accordance with our procurement policy, which included the awarding of panel contracts. So the record of the awarding of panel contracts, which were awarded by Council, would be in our Council minutes.
Thank you.
Good on you. Thank you. Thanks, Kerry. CEO, does that conclude our questions?
Yes, it does, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors. Public submissions. We don't have any public submissions. Notices of motion?
No.
No. Deferred business?
Correct, none.
Councillors, delegates' reports. Here's your opportunity. I'm happy to move around the room. Councillor Crook, what have you been up to?
I've been up to a few things, including going on holiday. Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
Good on you.
That's it.
Is it something you said, Councillor Crook? They've all left.
Must have been. Look, I'll just talk briefly about some of the correspondence and the conversations that I've been having over the last couple of weeks. Firstly, regards to the library, a matter that some people are here tonight about, and just to say thanks to those people who have written to me and the phone calls that I've received as well with concerns about...
Councillor Crook, I might just stop for a second. We've got the security out there moving on the noisy gallery.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe.
I wouldn't want to miss any of your dulcet tones, Councillor Crook.
Please continue, Councillor Crook.
So just to say thanks to those people who have written to me about the libraries and the service review over the last couple of weeks, and for those members of the community who have also taken the time to talk to me on the phone. Residents clearly have a great empathy with our libraries and for the many services they provide above and beyond the borrowing of books. It's become pretty apparent that people are generally really impressed with our library service, and I think that's something that we need to celebrate. And that libraries really seem to be one of our most valued assets by our community. So to all those people who have written in and taken the time to call me, thanks. I've heard what you have said and will act accordingly. Various people have also been ringing me about the Gippsland lakes and the health of the lakes, and concerned around polluting effluent from sewerage. I believe it's in relation to sewage treatment plants, so there does seem to be some confusion. So this is not an issue. This is an issue that I am quite aware of, especially in the context of Forge Creek, near where I live, the estuary and its connection to the Gippsland lakes. But it also seems a practice that is now also occurring in Meetung, and it's related to above average rainfall and the discharge from some of those sewage treatment plants. So I don't think that there's an easy fix to this, but I will just say that I will honour my intentions to follow up on these matters to better understand what is being done and ultimately do what I can to improve the health of the Gippsland lakes. Last week saw the release of our federal State of the Environment report. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but I've been anticipating that for quite some time. It was supposed to come out last year, and maybe that's because we had an election, it wasn't released. Anyway, it has been released now, but unfortunately it's not doesn't paint a great picture, and the health of the Australian environment, in summary, is poor and has deteriorated over the last 5 years due to various pressures, but particularly those related to climate change, habitat loss, invasive species, both weeds and pest, plant and animals, pollution, mining. And according to the government report, it really warns that the natural world is in peril. And this is a natural world that, of course, sustains human well-being and ultimately our survival. And while our national and state governments have tried to address this decline, the report's really found that not enough is being done and that not enough funding is being dedicated to our environment, and that there's also a lack of coordination across jurisdictions to properly address the cumulative impacts of these threats. So tonight I'm just foreshadowing my intention to ask our council to write to the federal government about implementing the recommendations of the State of the Environment report in full, and also to help fund our council where it comes to matters of national environmental significance as they occur on council land, and we therefore have responsibility to look after them. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crook. Well, we'll look forward to seeing something along those lines at maybe a future council meeting.
Indeed.
Great. We'll look forward to that and welcome it. Councillor Greason, how are you going? What have you been up to?
Well, it's actually been a really busy time. It's been a great time in the last few weeks, apart from the fact that we had 2 weeks off from council work, which was really very pleasant. But I went to a lot of events for the Winter Festival and loved them all. They were just really exciting and just absolutely fantastic to see the towns across East Gippsland celebrating in this way, particularly in cold, dark nights and everyone's out. I also went to events basically every day of NAIDOC week, and again, every day was a celebration and people were happy, really delighted to be out and about, and it was a real pleasure and real honour to be part of those events. I attended a few things that were kind of intellectually interesting, I suppose. You know, the Australian Institute put on something about the role of government in the modern economy, and I thought, oh, I better go listen to that, and some Nobel Prize people speaking. But essentially it was about the shift from neoliberalism to autocracy, so I drifted a bit on that one, but it was interesting but not particularly relevant to us. Destination Gippsland held a day on a tourism forum in Sale, and that was very interesting. We heard from Tourism Australia and Wellington Shire and Destination Gippsland themselves and Glawak, all of them very good presentations, and I won't go into any detail. And then finally, the highlight was the Paynesville Fire Brigade annual dinner, and that was wonderful to see some people who'd worked, volunteers for that brigade for 50 years and more, and the work that they do, the rehabilitation unit they run, etc. It was very, very pleasant. Thank you.
Councillor Greason, thank you. Councillor Van Diggle, I'm just moving sort of from my logical position around the room. It may not appear logical, but are you happy to share?
It doesn't appear logical from my end, but that's fine. Yeah, I've had a really quiet few weeks. As you remember last time at the meeting, I had the flu. And then in the last week, I've been homesick and I have COVID. So I haven't really done too much. I did attend in my little bit of being better, I did attend the NAIDOC week events, the flag raising at council, as well as the march. I did walk on my own at the march because I couldn't find any fellow councillors because there were hundreds of people there. I'm sure there were some fellow councillors in there as well. And then I attended the Disability Advisory Committee meeting online yesterday, and that was my first meeting for the year with the new members. So it's really nice to meet them. There were a few issues that they raised. Once again, in regards to Jimmy's point, they're still waiting on a bit of communication from council, and they have a few concerns about the new plans. So I want to get the minutes before I share that with the group, so I can make sure that what I heard was accurate. And they also talked about things about emergency management, and also Bianca Bassett came and talked about the accessibility event guide that she's creating, which I think will really benefit council once that's complete, about how we can make our events more accessible. But they're my only updates because I've practically been sick the whole time.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Van Diehl. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, busy as always. Fielding lots of calls from community about many different issues. The library, of course, and the Bendigo Bank services for Omeo, which are an imperative for our community here. It's an accessibility issue in regards to our Shire building has a wonderful ramp for the elderly and wheelchair access to the bank, whereas the only other alternative is the post office, which has steps. So there are legitimate reasons for the community to be really concerned, and that's just one of them, and I'm sure we'll hear plenty more about that. I was contacted in regards to the concerns about the Mallacoota airport changes. There's been some issues around CASA changing rules and regulations, which the council hasn't been able to meet. And it's a serious issue which, I encourage people to have a look at the news release that council has put out on that today. And I look on with interest that we will be discussing this in the future with and lobbying state government and CASA. And I do ask that residents of Mallacoota engage in making their voices heard directly to CASA, because this is something to do that they have imposted on many airfields, not just in our region but other areas. So that's that. I've had meetings with timber towns as well as Rural Councils Victoria. There's some pretty good things happening in Rural Councils Victoria just in regards to a climate change toolkit, which I'm sure many councillors around the table will be happy to engage with that, and also opportunities for leadership training. So I'm going to be engaging in that, and I encourage other councillors to do so. And if they'd like more information, they're more than more than happy to relay that information. I could go on. There's so much to talk about. Tyres report is coming out that's going to affect our area and our roads. We all know with the proposed closure of the native timber industry, one of the concerns I raised with timber towns was when this takes effect, what does that mean for our roads which are serviced because of that industry, and does that mean that we're going to have road closures and less access to our parks, etc.? So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, councillors.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mayor. I've only got a brief report this evening because I spent most of the time since the last meeting on holidays.
Lucky you.
I was very lucky,
Very
I have
lucky.
to say. I did miss out on quite a few things like the Winter Festival and all the wonderful reconciliation events, the ALGA conference, and a very important council meeting on the 28th of June when the budget was passed with the 10-year financial plan and the 4-year revenue and rating plan. So I was sorry to miss that. Also the adoption of the very important environmental sustainability strategy. I did enjoy trying to catch up when I got home, and particularly reading councillors' reports that they submit for this particular section of the council meeting. I enjoyed hearing about all those events, even if it was sort of second-hand. And I did appreciate the fact that councillors were given 2 weeks of lighter duties in the winter this year. That was new for this year, and I think it seems to have suited all of us. When I returned, obviously there were reports of record heat in the UK, and I was also quite alarmed at the State of the Environment report, which Councillor Crook has spoken about. I think that Environment report is very important to us in Council, and even though it's somewhat distressing, Councillor Crook has spoken about some of the content briefly of that report, but it paints a picture of species decline. And even the true number of extinctions is likely to be much higher than documented because we don't have a lot of data on these things. So the report also highlights the main reasons why the environment is in a bad way and deteriorating. And I just think in a lot of our contextual picture of what's happening, we as a council need to keep that in mind when we're developing our policies and our priorities. Yesterday I attended the Audit and Risk Committee, and I was also an observer at that second formal meeting of the Disability Advisory Committee with Councillor Van de Gel. It was a great meeting. Really appreciate that committee, so important to council because I think there are voices there that we don't often hear a lot of in our community, and it's very important to listen to them. So thanks for having me to that meeting. I also like to commend Beck Pantry's work there. I think she does a great job of supporting that particular group of community members. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councillor Uri. Councillor Stowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, the highlight of my last few weeks has been the attendance in the Twin River fishing competition. Now, as you would all be aware, this is a magnificent event. 600 anglers turned up from locally and from other areas, so it injects quite a bit of money into the community. More importantly, it's very good for men's health. It's like going to the arts, going to football, going duck shooting. This is very good for mental health. Anglers getting together, and it's a catch and release competition, so all those fish, they were caught, measured, photographed, kissed and released. They're swimming around the Gippsland lakes very happily, I have it. The guy that ran the event this year, or emceed the event, was the great Merv Hughes. Merv did it very well. He's got a good sense of humour. He's a rather large and flamboyant character. He helped the economy. He stayed at the Nicholson Hotel until 2:30 a.m. on Sunday morning until he was informed the pub was about to close, so he did his bit for the local hotels. But the hotels, the takeaway food shop, the tackle shops, they all benefited from these 600 anglers. Lots of prizes. A $22,000 boat was given away as a lucky door prize. An 80-year-old local won that. All the kids there, they had lucky draws for the kids, and there was only a handful of kids that didn't get something. It was very well done. And for those who are interested, the top lure was a 2.5-inch motor oil soft plastic on a 12-ounce gig. So if anyone's going bream fishing in the near future, I'd recommend the lower, probably the lower Nicholson River, come to think of it, with a motor oil soft plastic, which are on special at BCF at the moment. Thank you.
Very good, and that report was brought to you by? Thanks, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Allen.
I want to begin by saying happy birthday, Mendy.
Oh, yes. Councillor Uri, there you go.
Yes, happy birthday, Mendy. I've had a reasonable run around over the last 3 weeks, starting out the front here on the flag raising ceremony for NAIDOC, which on a rough count there was well over 50 people attended that, and then we adjourned for lunch around to GJAC, and that was a very, very good day. And Kirsten, the reason you didn't find me in the march was because I was on my way to Healesville to attend the Victorian Tourism Awards, where Lakes Entrance was one of the nominations for the big top towns, which meant that we're up against centres such as Bendigo and Ballarat, Warrnambool, I think, and others. So just to make the grade was a huge achievement in itself. And I just want to congratulate Fiona and Sandy from Leader for taking the initiative to nominate. But there was a lot of input from our Shire staff in taking forward that nomination. And I think we can all be very, very proud that we made that final. The following week, I had the pleasure of accompanying the Mayor to the opening of the rebuilt Mallacoota Co-op following the fires. And as a fisherman shareholder in Lakes Co-op, I only have one word for it: jealous. It is an absolutely fantastic facility, and it will see generations through. It is state of the art. It is really wonderful. And one of the highlights of the day was that the board of the Mallacoota, or they're not co-op anymore, but more the board of Mallacoota Abalone Limited, invited their chairman, who was chairman prior to and after the fires, Jeff Ellis, back from his retirement at Gove, up in the middle of the Gulf somewhere, to cut the ribbon. So it was a really nice touch on their part, and was a great occasion all around. I also attended the Paynesville Yacht Club's Christmas in July, and that was a really nice afternoon. And the highlight of that was that I managed to sit with 5 Raymond Islanders and they didn't string me up, so I thought that was a positive. So we had a great time. And a couple of things, just the last thing I wanted to mention was that there is a couple of new businesses open in Lakes, and it's great to see, after years of shops becoming empty, that the process is starting to turn around. One is Gippsland Bakery, who have opened a branch in Lakes to complement their Bairnsdale store. One of the long-term empty shops down near the footbridge has got leased on it. And Greg and Debbie Jerkins' indoor mini golf is just about fully functional and brings a whole new meaning to grandparents taking their grandkids to play mini golf, because you can sit back and watch them. You don't have to do anything. So, thank you.
Good on you, Councillor. Councillors, thanks so much for all the work you do. It has, despite the fact that we've had a little recess, it's been a busy time from this chair as well. So NAIDOC week, I did attend the march, so I was there, councillors, and I had the flag raising in Orbost at Mudgee, and there were over 100 people at Mudgee. It was really quite impressive, amazing. There were a number of Winter Festival events that I went to, and in particular Deep in the Weeds Festival at Sailor's Grave in Orbost, and that was really quite amazing. That was rockin'. And all I can say is the aspiration to get people to come to Gippsland in the middle of winter and stay here really worked. And the crowd there, Gabby Moore had the demographics of the crowd at Sailor's Grave: a third local, a third Greater Gippsland, a third Melbourne and Victoria. So, and the caravan park at Orbost was full that weekend. So people had come to stay there. It really does work and make it sticky. So a really big shout out to Adam Bloom and the team from the Winter Festival. You know, good investment from the Shire, great work from Adam and the team. It really does work. A couple of other things worth noting is the CFA SCS Wellbeing Project at Cann River was unveiled, and I was there. That's a beautiful mural, councillors, well worth stopping on the Monero Highway, the SES shed at Cann River, and including a fantastic carving as a memorial to timber workers. Really well worth stopping. Around the Shire, you might have noticed, councillors, that we have funded a number of standing water fire tanks. You'll see them dotted all around the Shire. Well, we've also funded some decoration and artwork on some of those at Goongerah and at Cann River by a Goongerah artist whose name is forgotten. It's all right, Tom. Josh? Josh, yeah, Josh. And the work is great. So it's well worth having a look at those too. Might not be the Silo Art Trail, but you never know, one day. I had the great pleasure of officially opening the pirate ship playground at Marlow. I'd never shirk away from a dress-up. So Pirate Pete opened that. That was a great day and a real tribute to the Marlow residents and ratepayers. Can I also just a call out to our contractor? Now, Liz Filmer is the contractor who did that piece of work. Liz and her company are based here in Gippsland. They actually live in Newmerella now, and they did the bespoke design, development, construction work on that pirate ship and the compliance. Now, being a compliant playground is no mean feat, and to design it from the ground up and have an amazing pirate ship that meets all those design requirements for a playground these days is just fantastic. Deputy Mayor, you're quite right about the abalone industry in Mallacoota. What an amazing facility. And their product is either canned, frozen or fresh. And they can deliver fresh abalone meat into southern China in 35 hours from the sea out of Mallacoota. Isn't that incredible? Absolutely incredible. So a real tribute to modernisation and globalisation of an industry like that. Really, really incredible. I really take my hat off to the abalone co-op. And there were a number of other things, such as Rotary Club changeovers at Sunrise, Bairnsdale and Orbost, and many others. So, councillors, there's the report. I'll submit it. Councillor Uri, that can be your bedtime reading, as it turns out. You can have a read of those reports. But councillors, I just want to acknowledge the great work that you do. Being out there and being in the community and participating is absolutely critical. Thanks so much. Councillors, let's move on to officers' reports and item 5.1 from the Chief Executive Officer. And 5.1.1, let's just navigate our way into this place. And this is the nomination to the Recycling Victoria Local Government Advisory Committee. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, the report before you today is around the nomination to the Recycling Victoria Local Government Advisory Committee. Just a little bit of background, as stated in the report, on the 14th of December last year, the Circular Economy Act was gazetted. That brought with it a range of changes, including the establishment of Recycling Victoria, which brings further oversight to waste management in Victoria. I might add that is the third oversight body for waste management in Victoria that we work with and will deal with. So it's a really good thing that the Recycling Victoria will establish a local government advisory committee. That advisory committee will be established for a period of up to 12 months and will include members from around Victoria, including a member from Gippsland. The timing of that invitation required Council to nominate a councillor prior to formal endorsement, and Councillor Tom Crook was nominated by the councillor group. So this report before you today is now seeking confirmation of that nomination. And so I present the report, and there are some options there for consideration if required, but I present this report to you, Mayor and councillors, for your consideration.
Terrific. Thanks, CEO. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify, I think on page 13 in the report it says something, and I can't put my finger on it now, but about the nominated representative would be a good representative for East Gippsland. But I just wanted to clarify, this is a representative for the whole of Gippsland. Is that correct, Mr CEO?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor. So yes, this is a nomination for a Gippsland position. I guess, and this has been discussed with Council previously, is that East Gippsland has some very particular challenges in relation to how it manages its waste, and Ms Weigel can certainly add to that and has spoken to you before about those matters. So it is with great enthusiasm that we put forward a nomination from East Gippsland so that we have that strong voice at the table when it is being discussed at a state level. So yes, Councillor Uri, the nomination is for Gippsland, and we know that there will be some other councillors from other councils that will be nominated, but it puts East Gippsland in a very good position to put its issues forward.
Thanks, Councillor Uri. Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Uri.
Not a question, but I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Fantastic, thank you. That was my next question. Councillor Stowe, looks like you are seconding it. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to commend the nomination, I think Councillor Crook has got both knowledge and a passion in the area of waste and recycling and the environment in general, and I think would make an excellent candidate, not just from East Gippsland, but for the whole of Gippsland.
Well said. Thank you. Councillor Stowe.
Yes, I endorse Mendy's comments. The last 18 months, Tom's been educating many of us, particularly me, about the circular economy and other things. So good to see. He is passionate about it and he's a very good person. He'd be ideal for this position.
Great. Thank you. Is the motion opposed, councillors? Would anybody else like to speak for or against, to or against the motion? Councillor Allen.
Only just to say that I think for these positions you need the best man for the job, and I certainly believe that Tom is the best man for this job, and I'd love to see him successful.
Best person for the job.
Best man or woman or person?
Best person. Well, I forgot this lesson from dinner. The best person. And an expert on rubbish.
Couldn't concur with all the above. Thanks, councillors. Anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors. Councillor Crook, thank you. You're not having a right of reply, are you?
No, I'd just like to thank my fellow councillors for the endorsement. If we are successful with my nomination, I'll do my absolute best to see that both East Gippsland and Gippsland are well represented in this important forum. Thank you.
And Councillor Crook, I think that you would bring a particular relevance and experience about the uniqueness of East Gippsland and our waste management challenges that I think needs to be heard in Spring Street and further down the line. So I think you're a great candidate. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks. Councillors, carried unanimously, CEO. Draft media policy is the next item on the agenda, councillors, which is item 5.2.1. If you're navigating your way through. And here I am, Mr. Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled the Draft Media Policy, which outlines the protocols for managing Council's media communications and relationships with media outlets, stakeholders and the community. Key points tonight, councillors, for you to consider are that the current social media and media relations policy, which is in the report at attachment 2, was last adopted in 2018. So the revised draft policy provides guidance in the provision of accurate and timely information to the media, which can increase the likelihood of balanced content being published by media outlets. Also, some key changes incorporated into the draft media policy include an expanded list of content channels to highlight the breadth of media use, and also how we should manage, in some cases, inaccurate and misleading content, and also parameters for the management of inappropriate content on social media. Tonight with us is Nola Brady, who is the Manager of Customer Experience and Communications, who is available to respond to any of the technical questions around the draft media policy. Thank you,
Mr. Cannizzaro, thank you. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Crook.
Maybe just a point of clarification following on from our brief conversation earlier. I understand this is principally around representation of council, but obviously councillors may seek to represent their own views at some stage, publicly or otherwise. I'm just unclear that that's articulated well in this policy, or maybe the question is that articulated in this policy? That's the ability for councillors to act independently as sovereign citizens, if you like.
Mr. Cannizzaro, or
thank you, Mayor.
Nola.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Crook. There's certainly provision in the draft media policy on page 31 of your agenda around comment as a private citizen. Happy to receive any recommendations around any changes to the content of that particular, if it's not explicitly clear for you, Councillor Crook, or other councillors. So, but there's certainly provision as on, as I said, page 31, around any views must be that you're representing on a personal basis will need to be made clear, or indicating that they are made as and on a personal basis and not representing council.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. And just to follow on from Councillor Crook's comments about our earlier discussion today, I'm just flagging it's my intention to suggest a recommendation once that the motion has, been put forward. So I'm happy to speak to that during the process, if you like, so that we clarify the policy by making those amendments.
So, Councillor Buckley, what we could do is I could seek to see if there's a motion, and then you could seek an amendment to that, if you like, or you could move it with an amendment. Either way is fine. Fine. We could move it, and then you could seek an amendment, maybe.
Yeah, we could.
I think that's probably the best way, and I think you've got a copy of that, and we do as well. So, if and when the time comes, we'll see a copy of it. I think, Vanessa, you've got that. No, Vanessa doesn't. You will soon, when it comes to the time.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm a bit out of step at the moment, so we'll get to that, and we'll accommodate those that matter. Are there any other questions, councillors? Okay, so there is a motion. So there's a recommendation. Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Crook, Councillor Stowe, Councillor Buckley, you happy to second it?
Someone else can second it.
Okay, no worries. Councillor Stowe, you scratched your nose. Is that seconding this motion?
I didn't think it was an auction, Mayor.
Well, you've just bought 500 head of cows. I think that's right.
I wasn't actually seconding it, but I was happy.
Okay.
Proposing it, was I?
Yeah, to second it. No, Councillor Crook is moving it.
Well, I would be very happy to second Councillor Crook's motion.
Okay, thank you. Just keeping you all on your toes there, councillors. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, just to say that it's obviously important that we have some documented processes around representation in the public sphere, especially in light of somewhat recent developments in the social media space, TikTok and Facebook and all those things. Basically everybody now is a publisher, so it's important that we have some mechanisms in place to ensure that the information that comes from our Shire is both accurate and represents the views of the organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Crook.
Very well summed up. I fully endorse your comments.
Is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Buckley.
Is this where I suggest an amendment?
This is the spot right now, absolutely.
Right.
So proposing an amendment, and we'll see if the mover accepts your amendment.
So I suggest the recommendation that Council receives and notes this report and all attachments pertaining to this report. That adopts the draft media policy as provided at attachment 1 with an addition to the policy principles sections on page 3. That public comments to media by any councillor are to be considered in the context of Section 28 of the Local Government Act 2020 and Section 5.2 and 9 of the Councillor Code of Conduct. Therefore, it must be made clear that councillors are clearly indicating that their views are their own. And 3, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to amend the adopted policy without formal council consideration if the amendments required are of a minor administrative nature.
Very good, thank you. So would we, Ms Elling, would we be able to see that? It's just about...
We're just about to send that to the officer. Yeah, Vanessa.
Stand by, councillors. Through the magic of the interweb, here it comes.
you can just bear with us.
Yeah,
for a
just
moment,
stand
Mayor.
by, councillors.
Just make sure that we get the right version up on the screen so councillors can see what is being suggested.
Can I just clarify that that's not exactly what I said? Can I please read section 2 again?
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Buckley.
Okay, so the section 2 states
Sorry,
that
stand by. It's just disappeared on us now, so we wanted to compare it to what you're saying.
Yeah, look,
we have a
I'm
different
sorry
version there,
about this.
Vanessa. Yep, yeah, you're right. We're just getting the right version.
Right.
Yeah, there's screens all over the place.
Right. Look, I'm sorry, that's still not correct. The version that I said was public comments to media. Oh, sorry, correction, it is there. I'd better just dust the glasses off. I do apologise, Vanessa. Yes, that's quite correct. True and correct.
We good with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
So I would normally ask the mover of the motion if you accept that amendment. Sorry, Mr. Cannizzaro, we're getting the full stop in the right place, I think.
Put the page number in after.
Yeah, we'll make sure it gets to the right page, page 3 of the draft media policy principles section on page 3. Councillor Crook, you're the mover. Do you accept that amendment?
I am happy to accept that amendment. Thank you.
Terrific. Do we need the seconder to accept that as well? That's why I'm making eye contact with you, councillor. That
was my deafy. I don't quite understand it. So what we're saying is that we can all go and speak to the media as long as we don't say we're speaking on behalf of council. Is that what that says?
In effect.
Yes.
And that's probably what Section 28 of the Local Government Act probably says as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's correct. Just to clarify that you're not speaking on behalf of the councillor group or taking the role of the position of council, but you're entitled to have your own personal view on any matter and speak to the media in that context.
So in practical terms, if let's say the ABC rang up or the local paper rang up, you'd prefix any comments with "these are my personal views" and not of the council.
Correct.
And that wouldn't necessarily be reported, though, would it?
Yes, it
Usually
should be. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just worried about if we all chuff off and have different opinions after something's been discussed in council.
But as long as it's as long as it's your personal opinion, then it's and you're not being putting the council into disrepute, which is in part of our code of conduct, which is what we need to adhere to. I don't think that's going to be an issue, Councillor Stowe.
Okay. So this would fit into our code of conduct, okay?
Section 5.2 and 9 of the Council Code of Conduct.
Yeah. I should have known that.
Well, it's just written there, that's all.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
Councillor Uri, so good question. So thanks. Councillor Uri's got a question.
It's a
Trevor.
question of clarification, I think, with Councillor Buckley's proposal. As I read that doesn't say anything about the need to state this is my private view. It just gives us permission to speak as a private person. However, if what is said in the policy itself, if that still stands, to say as a private citizen, I must make that clear, I would expect that would still be necessary. That yes, I can speak as a private citizen, but I must also state it when I'm being interviewed in the media.
Yes, well put, Mandy. That's what I was thinking, but you put it in the correct terms. So, yeah.
Okay. May I clarify through the chair? I think it's pretty succinct in this that it says, and therefore their views are their own.
It doesn't say state.
So Councillor Allen first, and then Councillor Greason.
I just wondered whether Alba could, excuse me, read out the relevant sections of the Code of Conduct for us, please.
If you could just afford me a few minutes to look them up for you.
Yep.
If I may, through you, Mayor.
Yep, I had a question too. Go ahead, Peter.
So clearly, Councillor Buckley's reference to Section 28 of the Local Government Act 2020. Councillors, you'll be familiar with that section of the Act because it is, in particular, titled The Role of a Councillor. And therefore, there are certain obligations and provisions within that section and subsections and subsections of that particular Act that goes to decision-making, representing the interests of the municipal community in decision-making, strategic direction. Also in performing the role of a council, council must consider diversity of interests, support the role of the council, acknowledge and support the role of the mayor, act lawfully in accordance with the oath or affirmation of office, act in accordance with the standards of conduct, which is a reference back to the Code of Conduct, and comply with council procedures required for good governance. Also, the role of the council does not include the performance of any responsibilities or functions of the Chief Executive Officer. They're very clear in the Act in terms of that particular reference that Councillor Buckley has raised in her amendment or proposed amendment.
Thanks, Peter. Miss Elling.
And to address your question, Councillor Allen, Section 5.2 in the Councillor Conduct document refers specifically straight back to the legislation, so exactly as Mr Cannizzaro has just read out to you. And Section 9 refers to councillors must not discredit and mislead council or public. So they're the two areas that are referenced in the statement.
So it's not really explicit in any way. Needs to be.
My question, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Greason, you had a question?
Oh, look, I mean, I'm just looking at Section 28 of the Act as well, and it does not mention councillors speaking to media at all. And it's really acting in accordance with the standards of conduct is really the only relevant bit of that section of the Act. So I don't think it's clear at all.
My question, Mr Cannizzaro or Miss Elling, is around the role of the Mayor being the only member of council authorised to speak to media on inquiries on council matters. Does this undermine that statement and allow a councillor to then become somebody who can speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. So the Mayor is the spokesperson of council, and certainly the Mayor can authorise other councillors to speak on a matter that has been or has been before council in terms of a decision. But again, that is spokesperson for the council.
Yep.
So the proposed amendment that Councillor Buckley is proposing is that a councillor or any councillor has the ability to provide their own personal views to, for example, the media, which is slightly different to the Mayor's role as the primary principal spokesperson for council on council matters.
Yep. And that's as opposed to the section below, comment as a private citizen, which is not about council matters. That's about everything else. So this is about councillors may be able to speak their opinion about council matters.
Correct.
Yep. But not represent council. That's really what this is saying. Correct. Okay. Councillor Crook, are you still comfortable with that amendment?
I am, because I believe the Local Government Act Section 28 captures some of the concerns that I've heard here around not undermining the council or seeking to contradict the messages being articulated by the Mayor. So I'm okay with the amendment.
Thanks. Councillor Stowe as seconder.
Look, in its present form, I don't like it. I think it's, Mendy put it a lot better than I can, but something in there should say that we are required to say this is our personal view as opposed to council view. I don't see it in there.
May I make a further amendment to...
Sure.
To the,
do you have something that might provide some reassurance?
Yes. So when it says, and therefore their views are their own, we could just close off and not that of the council group. And that makes it clear that it's very definitive.
Or just put in, and therefore state that their views are their own. Yeah.
Or therefore state that their views are their own. That's fine. Yep. If you want to add a couple of extra conjunctions for clarity.
So it's really saying that you actually are obliged to state that these are my views.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that that's the true and correct way, proper thing to do.
Yeah.
There seems to be some furious nodding here at the moment now.
That was my reservation, and I'm happy with that.
Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder of the new motion, which it becomes a substantive motion. Great. Thanks, councillors. These are often challenging, but we've got it right in the end, so that's good. Thanks for that participation. Would you like to, have you spoken to this? Would you like to now speak to this motion? Councillor Stowe. What's your name? Councillor Crook.
Thank you.
Pardon me.
Just to say that I think it's important that everybody is afforded an opportunity to voice their own opinions and that this amendment captures that.
Thank you. Councillor Stowe.
Yeah, a sensible adjustment to the motion, and I'd support that.
Okay. Is the motion opposed? You're opposing it now, Councillor Buckley.
Yes, I am. And may I speak to the reason as to why I oppose it? Mayor, through you.
Sure, absolutely.
I know it may sound very odd to people that I would make a amendment to what I consider is a policy that council does need, and we're required to have. But as a true libertarian and a person that values freedom of speech, I find that this policy has areas which I can't commend, such as council, people who are employed by council not being able to have any say in any public arena about the council. I think that for me as a libertarian I can't support. So that is why I won't be voting in the affirmative for this particular motion, even though I believe that the amended version of this motion is much better than what we started with.
So are we withdrawing the amendment?
Not at all. The amendment stays as it is.
Well, I was actually asking Tom because he's the one that moved.
So
Just because I've opposed it, it's already been
No,
moved,
it's-
seconded and accepted. Is that right, Mayor?
So I just have a sense, Councillor Buckley, that with those comments there may be a change of some opinions of some councillors about that amendment, that's all. So the only way to decide that is to put the motion to the vote. Councillor Buckley, sorry, stand by, Councillor Buckley.
Sorry.
Councillor Uri.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak in support of the motion on the table. Mr.
Sure, so we're still in debate, so yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
I'd just like to commend the motion. I think that the policy is very clear. I think it's very necessary to have a clear policy, and I think that I thank the officers for drafting these words because I think it's exactly as we need, and I'm very happy to support it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The motion.
So the motion, which is a substantive motion, this one now. Yep. Councillor Crook, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. I believe, no, I'm still happy with the motion, the substantive motion. And I believe that in reference to Councillor Buckley's comments around staff, they are still quite able to represent their own views, but they are not able to represent the views of the council. I'm happy to seek clarification on that.
Okay, we're still in debate, so I think the time has passed around that, and so I'm just being a bit technical on this particular matter where we're in.
All right. In that case, I'm happy with the motion to proceed.
Yep. You're shaking your head, sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, councillors, so the debate is finished. Now I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of this motion? Pardon me, I did ask if anybody else would like to speak for or against the motion. So you're very welcome. I did look across and so sorry, Councillor Greason, would you like to speak for or against the motion?
Yes, I would like to speak against the motion. I'm still uncomfortable with the amended section of it, and I don't think it's clear enough that it's in reference to councillors speaking on their own behalf. I'm just going to vote against the amended motion.
Yep, thank you. Sorry, and I was a bit out of step there because Councillor Crook should have had the opportunity to a right of reply at the end of all of that, so my apologies. No right of reply on an amended motion, so we can withdraw that right of reply. Councillor Crook, sorry. There we go. That's why I look across to the governance experts who glare at me in these matters. So councillors, in which case I am going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Did you count that? 4-4. The Mayor has the casting vote in this case, and I will vote against this motion. The motion is lost. So, can we propose an alternative motion then?
If we could just have a moment, Mayor.
Yep, just stand by.
Steps, because the matter has been dealt with, and I just want to check whether we can actually put forward a further one. We may have to bring it forward again, but I will just double check.
It became a substantive motion.
We changed the motion, we didn't vote on the amendment.
Yep. We're just checking the governance rules around this, whether an alternative motion can be brought back on this matter right now, or whether the report needs to come back at another time. The motion's lost at the moment. Yeah, and once it's lost, it's lost. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor, for your indulgence.
Yep.
Just to make sure we get that right.
Yep.
We will need to bring that policy back, and we will do so at a future council meeting.
Yep, okay, good, thank
you.
you. Councillors, we'll move on to the next item, which is 5.3, Place and Community. And this is the endorsement of the independent review of East Gippsland Planning Scheme. Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your endorsement of a report on the independent review of the East Gippsland Planning Scheme. And it also seeks authorisation for the CEO to report the findings of that review to the Minister for Planning as required by the Planning Environment Act. The key points in relation to this is the independent review of a planning scheme, in this case the East Gippsland Planning Scheme, is a requirement of the Planning Environment Act 1987. The review is effectively an audit of the performance of the planning scheme, how it's working, and then it informs and sets up a framework for continuous improvement, the things that we need to do to improve the operation and currency of the planning scheme, and particularly the local planning provisions. So it is about reviewing the strategic focus of the planning scheme and ensuring a commitment to continuous improvement. The review identified a number of areas for improvement, including a number of things that were already understood and were already on the program, and some of these are underway. So it includes completion of some of the strategic work that's already been underway, and in particular incorporation of that in the planning scheme. It includes completion of some new strategic work which has been on our agenda already. And it does also identify some additional items that are required or suggested or recommended to address remaining policy gaps. And so in this way it provides that independent look at the planning scheme that helps inform our priorities for the future of our strategic planning program. Also present with me this evening is Martin Richardson, Manager Planning, and Nicole Reynolds, Coordinator Strategic Planning. So the report's in front of you, councillors, for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Good on you. Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Crook.
How will this affect our existing review process that's currently underway, or the development, for example, a rural land use strategy? Will that have to be paused while this process takes place, or can that occur concurrently?
No. Thank you, Councillor Crook, and through you, Mayor. The existing pieces of work that we have already identified as priorities, such as the rural land use strategy, are also identified through the independent review as work that needs to happen. So they will continue. But what it does do is it also identifies some other things that need to occur. So they will be scheduled as resources and time enable that to occur.
Thank you.
Councillor Crook, thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Uri.
Thank you. Seems like a lot of work to do in the planning department, but with great benefit in the end. Would you have any idea how long it will take to complete this piece of work, please?
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Uri, and through you, Mayor. There is a significant body of work that's identified in that independent review, and the program of work that has been outlined runs for a number of years. So there is some things on there that I think we've identified out to year 3 or so. Martin might be able to assist me in a moment with that, but there are also some things which the timing of which is yet to be determined, given the significance of the work that's required, and also an understanding of the relative priority of different items. Martin, is there anything further you'd add on that?
I can add, thanks Stuart, and through you, Mayor, Councillor Uri, there's a happy alignment between the review that's been undertaken and our current strategic planning priorities. So projects such as the rural land use strategy, the housing and settlement strategy, the development of a new municipal planning strategy for the planning scheme, and Councillor Buckley will be happy to hear a process of cutting red tape in the scheme, which we are about to start. So I'd say about 75% of the recommendations of this review are currently underway, and are planned to be undertaken in the next 2 years. There are some residual issues which we need to undertake in further years, subject to resources, but I'm happy to say that the review has indicated that most of the required strategic work as identified in this independent review is currently underway and is expected to be completed in years 1 and 2. Year 3 might be a different story, but the priorities are currently within our strategic planning priorities.
Just as a follow-up question, if I may, do we require extra resources over and above what we have in the department at the moment?
We're continuing to review the resources that are needed, Councillor Uri, through you, Mayor. And so we'll continue to keep councillors updated in relation to that. There is a significant program of work and we're making extensive use of external contractors and consultants in assisting us to progress that, and that work is continuing. As councillors are well aware, in a general sense, there are challenges in recruitment to some of these key roles, which also is something that we need to continue to deal with.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Uri. Councillors, are there any further questions? My question is maybe a comment just around that action plan really covers off a lot of that detailed work, and there's a lot of work in that action plan. So thanks, Mr McConnell and Martin and Nicole. That will keep people busy for a long time in there. Yep. Are there any further questions, councillors? Including reference to OMEO 2, Sonia, you should be pleased about. Councillors, are there any further questions? In which case, there is a recommendation. Is there a motion? Councillors, Councillor Greason, Councillor Allen, quick off the draw, Councillor Greason.
I think this is an excellent document. The review's comprehensive and it's quite enlightening, really, about future work needing to be done in incorporating more local policy, content, reviewing zones and schedules, updating some elements of the East Gippsland planning scheme and addressing long-standing planning issues, in particular addressing flooding and bushfire. So the review does recognise the significant resource challenges faced by the Shire, the Council, having to contend with significant bushfire reconstruction issues in recent years. It's an incredibly useful and powerful supportive reference document for the East Gippsland Shire Council that I think is going to set our benchmarks for some time. Thank you.
Councillor Greason. Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Mayor. I think Jane summed it up pretty well, and Nicole and Martin don't need the sleep, so I'm sure they'll have it done in no time.
Great, thank you. Is the motion opposed, councillors? Would anybody else like to speak to or against the motion? Councillor Buckley.
There we go. Look, just to say that it's been really a positive experience to see the journey of where we began and where we're going to with the planning department and the work and the process that's been happening, because it was we so needed an overhaul, and everything that I've seen has embraced that, and this is just really good to see, and I look forward to getting more positive comments coming back from the community, because I've had a few lately in regards to the planning processes that they've been going through. So something's going right. So thank you very much for all the hard work that goes on in that department. And I hope you're getting the support that you need, because a lot of it was due to not having, from what I was aware of, enough feet on the ground and going through extraordinary circumstances. So keep up the good work.
Councillor Buckley.
Thanks.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to or against the motion? Thanks, councillors, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks. Carried unanimously, CEO. There's no urgent or other business, and there's no... Oh, there is confidential business, so I'll need just someone to move us. Thank you. And do we need to state what we're doing? We do. So can you move or read out that? Would you like me to read it out and then you move it? I'm happy to do that. Council will close the meeting to the public in accordance with the provisions of section 66(2) of the Local Government Act to consider the following list of items: 7.1, 7.2 and 7.3. You happy to move that, Councillor Stowe? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Greason. Do I need to speak to the motion? Is the motion opposed, councillors? It's not. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of moving into camera? Thanks. We will do so and stop the cameras. Sorry, am I telling Ben? We're back on again. Thanks, councillors and officers and anybody who's watching. So that concludes East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of the 26th of July 2022, and I'll declare the meeting closed at 8 p.m. Thank you for your attendance and thank you for your work, councillors. And once again, as I've said before, council officers, thank you for providing excellent coherence